And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, him.
It's a roll call, baby.
That's right, everybody. Good morning, Eastern Time, 8:05 live. And of course, for me, it's dark outside. Still, it's 5:05 in the morning, Pacific Coast. What's up, brother? Good morning. I think this is a great conversation. We started touching on this a little bit yesterday, but today we dive more into it. NYPD Reversing Course on vehicle pursuits. So first thing I just want to say, to me, it's kind of ironic. The chief that was out there, and everybody knows this illustrious chief that was out there being a reckless, reckless about it, almost like a cowboy on a rodeo, talking about vehicle pursuits, how it's a crime-fighting tactic, and no one's going to get away from the NYPD anymore. Forget about the whole procedure behind it, the safety and the risk and the hazards associated with vehicle pursuits. We're not going to have it, and we're not letting people get away no more. And then all of a sudden, completely, that's the same chief that authorized a new procedure, Chief John Schell, and he's all about safety now. So, John, to me, just looking at it, I have to say, when it comes to Jessica Tisch, is this procedure meant because it's the best for the department, or is this to clean up the image of John Schell? Because why is he authorizing this particular patrol guide procedure? And in addition to that, the memo that went out by Jessica Tisch in regards to vehicle pursuits, it's been surfaced. It's all over social media. Check out John's ex. Check out my ex. We both post the actual memo in regards. And, of course, there's an excerpt in there where John Schell is referred to as far as the safety behind this vehicle pursuits. I find it ironic. What are your thoughts?
Oh, my God. I think it's so first off, I think that they're getting ahead of what's going to happen because, like we told you 2 years ago, if you're out there engaging in vehicle pursuits, if you think John Schell is going to stand at your court case with you, if you think the job's going to say, oh, no, this guy was great, man. You got to see him. He looked great in those tight khaki pants. He looked like a little boy. It was nice and round, and it was so perfect. And he made those 7 arrests before he made detective. Those were the best 7 arrests that anyone's ever made. If you think that was going to happen, you're out of your mind. So they're looking to get ahead of what's actually happening. And we touched on it about a month ago. We did an episode, I think it was Fall Guy 3 that we did. Could have been one of them. We did so many on the vehicle pursuits. And, I got to really give a big shout out to Yoav Gonen in the city because I think he's had his finger on the pulse of this issue the entire time of like what happened, the change in policy, the change in how many accidents are happening. And honestly, I wanted to name this episode John Schell, Chief of Department John Schell versus Chief of Patrol John Schell, but it was just too long. It was too long. It didn't look right, but that's ultimately what it should be because it's the ultimate hypocrisy. And what we spoke about on that episode is that when you tally the amount of accidents and the amount of money and the amount of property damage and the amount of lives and injuries that happened, and you put them up against what was the benefit to public safety, you're not only going to not see, you're going to not only see a 0 result, you're going to see actually a negative result where law enforcement, the NYPD, actually made the streets of New York City less safe. Would you agree with me that this had 0 effect on crime in NYPD? 0 in New York City, 0 effect. I'm saying right now, it's 0.
Right, because ultimately we talk about what's the reward? Does it outweigh the risk? And essentially the answer is absolutely not because, I don't have the data, but I'm sure we could actually get the data. But based on what...
We have the crime numbers.
What's that?
We have the crime numbers.
Right, but what I'm saying, based on the press conferences that we heard, we can't even... I'm saying, me personally, if I could look at every pursuit, how many pursuits ended up in an actual arrest and conviction? Now, I talk about dichotomy. How many actually end up in arrest and conviction? Those numbers I would like to get, and that would show it does the reward actually outweigh the risk. And we could say right now, based on their press conferences, no, because that's what they talk about. They talk about their crime numbers are affected by recidivism and bail reform, and that their stakeholders, which is the justice system, is not being held accountable and not doing their part. So the answer to that, we know right away, it's not worth it. The reward does not outweigh the risk. Absolutely not. Rich Rod, shout out to you, brother. Here we go. Good morning, coffee and donuts. Rich Rod, thank you so much. Always put his hand in his pocket. Good morning, John, Eric, and everyone. Absolutely good morning to you. So when we talk about these vehicle pursuits, ultimately, that has to be evaluated. Does the reward outweigh the risk? And the answer is absolutely not, because we're not actually getting a conviction. In many cases, I'm pretty sure that we're probably actually not getting this drawn up in actual arrest. We're probably making an arrest and it's probably getting dismissed right there and then. So, in most cases, what do we say? Let's be honest, John. We both said it's pretty much don't do it unless you have a substantial risk, somewhat of imminent danger. It's in real time. You pull up to a car and someone's shooting kids outside a window. Obviously, at this point, we have to stop this person. You have someone that's in real time that was kidnapped, someone that's committed an act of terrorism. But short of that, I can't see how the reward outweighs the risk.
Yes, I put a couple of posts out online yesterday, and everyone's like, well, what do you want us to do, John? I was like, what do I want you to do? Do what the hell we've been doing for the last 50 years. Be cops, do police work, don't act like reckless cowboys and you're playing Dukes of Hazzard in the middle of New York City. That's what I want you to do. Use your brain. That's what I want you to do. Don't endanger innocent life. Don't endanger your own life. Don't endanger your own freedom. Like, be smart. Be cops. I mean, any supervisor that came out with us or anybody before us, they know that this is retarded. The only person that thought that this was a good idea was John Schell. And you have to be an absolute moron. And honestly, Eric, I don't need the numbers at all. I know what the numbers are based upon what their statement is. I know the numbers are not only did it have a zero effect on crime, it actually had a negative impact on public safety in New York City. I know because they're detracting from this. They're trying to pull back on it. And they're using the same chief that said, we ain't having it no more. It ain't going to happen no more. And then when everyone was clapping and we're like, this guy's an idiot and this is not going to last. And here you go. Here you go. Here's what it is. And now, how many people lost their careers and their lives over it? We're going to find out. We're going to find out in the years to come, and you're going to see how much money New York City spent on this insanity. It's absolutely so anybody that thinks that John Schell belongs where he is, I want to have this conversation. Like, this is a key pivotal point in John Schell's career. He pushed the car pursuits. He said we weren't having it anymore. And now all of a sudden, not only are we not having it anymore, we're actually restricting car pursuits further, which is exactly what we said on the first episode that we did. You're going to actually make this procedure worse. And that's exactly what's happened. It's exactly what's happened.
Well, again, you know what? I'm sure I'm going to get some phone calls today because usually a lot of times people say, what do you guys have, a crystal ball? No, we just actually have a vast amount of experience and we're making an observation. And the difference is we actually give real perspective and not just say hug a cop, thank a cop. We give a real perspective about police work, anecdotal experience about things, how they actually work. Talk about reward in comparison to risk. There's no doubt about it. I find it funny. I couldn't stop laughing yesterday when we read it out and we realized that, remember at some point, John, we assumed it was the police commissioner, but when we actually read the patrol guide procedure, it's authorized by the chief of the department. The same chief of the department that's actually pushing and driving this crime tactic to utilize vehicle pursuits. And we can't even say that, well, he's just saying it. It's just words, because it's not. Because his words in leadership actually caused a major increase in vehicle pursuits. Excuse me. Which led to a major increase in property damage. It led to an increase in injuries and ultimately death when it comes to a tactic utilized of these vehicle pursuits. I think it's kind of funny in a sense. Well, imagine I said, you know what, John? Excuse me. Eat coffee and donuts and ice cream and candy all day. You shouldn't eat anything else. Just eat coffee, ice cream, and donuts. And then you gain 100 pounds in 6 months. And after 6 months, I go, you know what, John? Stop eating those coffee and donuts. You should be eating broccoli and salad all day. That will keep you in shape. And look at myself. I'm a bill of health. I mean, this is ridiculous. That's why I stay at this point. And we're going to read out this memo. But there's an excerpt in this memo where it's referred to about John Shell talking about safety. I think it's ironic, and that's why I say, is Jessica Tisch cleaning house, or is she cleaning John Shell's image? Is this now this stance the benefit of the public and the benefit for the cops, or is it to clean up John Shell's image because he's the chief of the department?
It's like I said, it's both. Like that, they're getting ahead of a huge scandal right here. That's all she's doing, and with that, she has to try to give the reason that she supposedly promoted John Shell, the chief of the department, when everyone knows it was Eric Adams. I can come. She is not the police commissioner. She is. I think Sal named her the billionaire puppet, and that's exactly what she is. She. I had a lot of hope for her. And with that being said, that she's clearly Eric Adams' puppet, and I'm not gonna play that she's not. With that being said, I'm still happy to see that some common sense things are happening, and there's some type of professionalism happening here. It doesn't go far enough, in my opinion, but at least there's some type of adult leadership in the room. Although she still has to deal with, Eric Adams, who really is the police commissioner. Kaz Daughtry's been awfully quiet, though, I will say, awfully quiet since Big Daddy Jeff left. So I think he's on trash duty. I think Scooch pointed out that if you look at Daughtry's Twitter, it's all about like cleaning up littered streets. So he's on trash duty. She moved him over to the Department of Sanitation. I guess you're the sanitation liaison, Kaz. So this is a press release that comes out yesterday from Jessica Tisch. Commissioner Tisch announces NYPD vehicle pursuit policy. Sorry, this is real hard to read. I should have got a better copy. Critical changes will clarify procedures, increase management oversight, and restrict pursuits only to the most serious crimes. New policy will strengthen street safety, ensure officers can continue to apprehend dangerous suspects. Advanced tools of modern policing make pursuits by low-level offenses unnecessary. Wow, yeah. By the way, we've had that anyway. They were always unnecessary in New York City, as far as we've been policing, but whatever. New York City Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch today announced new policy regarding department vehicle pursuits. The new regulations will strengthen street and roadway safety for city residents and officers alike, while maintaining the ability for NYPD to apprehend suspects who will ultimately get 343'd and released back out on the streets in New York City by all 5 borough DAs. Now, it doesn't say that in there, but that's exactly what's going to happen. New York is one of the most densely populated cities in the world. Shocker! And our officers deserve clear guidance and smart protocols determining whether to engage in a vehicle pursuit in our streets, said Police Commissioner Tisch. The NYPD's enforcement efforts must never put the public or the police at undue risk, and the pursuits for violations and low-level crimes can be potentially dangerous and unnecessary. The advanced tools of modern-day policing make it possible to apprehend criminals more safely and effectively than ever before, making many pursuits unnecessary. Now our cops will have clear, unambiguous parameters for when to initiate, continue, and terminate pursuits. This new policy will expand supervision over such pursuits and will require more detailed and timely documentation when these occur. These key changes will make both the police and public safer and further improve the NYPD's blah, blah, blah. Let's just get the shell. Our overachieving objective every minute of every day is to keep the people of this great city safe, said Chief of Department John Shell. In order to do that, we need to pursue criminals when appropriate and stay our hand when the risk to the public and our cops outweigh the benefits. Our revised policy strikes that critical balance, and we will make our city safer for police and communities. So a whole bunch of bull crap. John Shell did not write that. He did not say that. That was a shout out to your speechwriter, to some third grade detective or some like lowly rookie cop that wrote that actually is smart.
Yeah, you got to laugh at that. You got to laugh because if you actually read that, when you read that press release, and I read it myself yesterday, obviously I read it several times, but when you read that press release, you actually break it down. It actually exposes the fact that what they're saying in that press release is that these are the problems they identified that they have not admitted to the public. What they're saying is we're going to make sure that this policy is not forget about talk about the policy. That vehicle pursuits are not going to be carried out for low-level crimes, for misdemeanors, for things that are actually not going to make it to court. Because what they're saying is that's what's been happening. That without saying it, that's what they're saying in this press release, that they've identified the problem is that these vehicle pursuits, the majority of them have been for low-level crimes, and they're not actually getting that reward that outweighs the risk. They're not actually seeing the worth of these vehicle pursuits. That's basically what they're saying in this press release. They're not going to admit it. And how the police department does it is by a knee-jerk reaction and come out with a policy to give the illusion and the appearance that the police department actually had a preemptive strike against this. It's kind of ironic, but that's why they hate New York's Finest Retired and Filtered podcast, especially John Shell. It's because we expose actually real perspective and the inner linings of the police work of the NYPD that they've never heard before. So without myself, yourself, John Sal, Greco, Marlon Bethel, and our friends and listeners that have been the squeaky wheel that gets the oil, talk about the police department, this would have been in just another footprint of the police department to give the illusion that they actually care about people, show compassion. And yet, we've heard Eric Adams talk about vehicle pursuits. Oh, everything's fine. The supervisors ensure that it's properly handled, that they're actually pursuing perpetrators, that the worth is there over the risk. We've seen the data. We've seen the articles. I mean, you and I have been advocates. Excuse me. You and I have been advocates to try to protect these police officers, even the khaki pants. You know, we were attacked on social media for the khaki pants because our position when it comes to these vehicle pursuits that ultimately could lead them to a position where they lose their financial freedom and ultimately actually be imprisoned. I mean, I see articles in the entire country, not just New York, where police officers are facing 25 years to life for initiating a vehicle pursuit on a perpetrator that's out shooting outside of a car. And it ends badly. And these police officers are doing real prison time. And yet we see NYPD police officers, especially the khaki pants in the CRT unit, and they're at the height of engaging these vehicle pursuits. And they've been pretty fortunate. They've had a blanket of protection. But as this organization, this administration crumbles, will that blanket of protection last? To me, no. I think at some point, someone's going to go back, depending on the statute of limitations, and there are going to be many police officers, their careers are going to change, and their lives are going to change because they're going to be on the hook for these vehicle pursuits that ultimately landed people with major injuries and ultimately death.
Yeah, so this is the procedure, right? This is the new procedure. I remember the old procedure pretty well, so I think we don't need to really go back and forth. We could just go through it. So effective February 1st, 2025, vehicle pursuits is suspended. 2115 is suspended, and the following procedure will be complied with. Purpose: to determine the necessity of initiating a vehicle pursuit and the method to be employed in conducting such a pursuit. Vehicle pursuits, the scope is the vehicle pursuits are not authorized when the most serious offense committed or suspected of being committed is a traffic infraction, violation, or non-violent misdemeanor. So right off the bat, those two statements have completely changed the purpose and the scope. Vehicle pursuits are not authorized when the most serious offense committed or suspected of being committed is a traffic infraction, violation, or non-violent misdemeanor. Eric, what do you think about that alone?
Well, that's my point. So clearly, it's obvious to me that a majority of the vehicle pursuits were actually that, pursuing traffic infractions and pursuing low-level misdemeanors, which ultimately end up in dismissal of summonses, ends up in dismissal of the actual arrest. So ultimately, the reward does not outweigh the risk because the occupants that actually initiate these pursuits, and there's no doubt about it, it's the actual perpetrators that initiate vehicle pursuits by not being in compliance with law enforcement. It's the accountability, the responsibility of the police officer and the supervisor to determine to continue to pursue in these vehicle pursuits. So clearly, based on that, John, alone, that to me says overwhelming majority of these pursuits were exactly that: traffic infractions and misdemeanors, which means it's worth nothing. It's garbage.
Yeah, 100%. That most of these pursuits were completely unnecessary. And again, like we said, not only did they not revise the policy to coincide with John Shell's of we're not having it anymore, they further restricted the ability to provide public safety when it is necessary. Right? Because there might be a pursuit where it might have been that you might have needed to do that. But whatever, you're further restricted now, like we said. Thank you, John Shell. Thank you. Here's another patrol guide procedure that John Shell was responsible for creating for further restricting cops because we put morons in charge of the New York City Police Department. So now they label out what an authorized emergency vehicle is. A marked or an unmarked department radio motor patrol car, also known as an RMP, is allowed to initiate and engage in a vehicle pursuit. Department vans must immediately disengage from a pursuit when another department vehicle has joined the pursuit. Furthermore, unmarked RMPs and two-wheeled motorcycles must immediately disengage from the pursuit when a marked RMP has joined the pursuit. Uniformed members of the service should keep in mind the capabilities of the department vehicle when deciding whether or not to engage in a vehicle pursuit. So this hasn't changed. That hasn't changed at all. Vehicle pursuit. They define vehicle pursuit: any attempt by a uniformed member of service operating an above-listed emergency authorized vehicle to stop a subject who is actively seeking to elude custody or apprehension while also operating a vehicle. This does not include the use of aviation unit or other techniques deployed to monitor and or broadcast updates regarding the subject vehicle while operating a department vehicle in a non-emergency capacity. Although there is a little change to it, there's really not much of a change. It's just a slight change in verbiage. Vehicle pursuit termination. The official ending of a vehicle pursuit, which a uniformed member seizes all vehicular pursuit activity by activating, deactivating emergency signal devices, notifying the radio dispatcher, and resuming patrol. That is a change, just defines it. Nonviolent misdemeanor. A misdemeanor that does not cause, threaten, or create a substantial risk of physical injury or death to a person. Primary vehicle. Vehicle initiating or controlling the pursuit if the highway district personnel are involved in or have responded to a vehicle pursuit. They will be designated the primary authorized emergency vehicle. Secondary vehicle. First additional authorized emergency vehicle assisting in the pursuit. Forcible stopping. This is new. A form of restriction. Example, ramming, etc. Initiated by a uniformed member of service operating an authorized emergency vehicle for the purpose of stopping a pursued vehicle. Forcible stopping restrictions are prohibited from use during a vehicle pursuit. So the pit maneuvers that the CRT were using, they've now put a definition in. It's called forcible stopping. Eric, what do you think about what do you think about that they had to upgrade this to say you can just slam into cars and stop them that way?
That's what I'm saying. This actual patrol guide procedure in this press release is basically, it's like, when you have a conversation with people and when people say, hey, listen, to be honest, and they say, hey, I don't mean to offend you, but so what they're actually about to do is they're actually about to offend you. So that's what this press release and this patrol guide procedure is. What they're saying this is, well, we had an issue that the pursuits were, the majority of them were actually pursuing low-level misdemeanors, that the pursuits that we identified were actually pursuing traffic infractions. We identified that we were using forcible stopping maneuvers involved in these vehicle pursuits. So basically what they're saying is all the problems that have been created have now been rectified with this procedure. So exactly that, John, we hit the mark. We were spot on. When we spoke about this over 2 years ago, it's over 2 years ago now that John and I have been speaking about vehicle pursuits, but really at the height of it, about a year and a half ago, was really when John Shell started to perpetuate this idea of it being a crime tactic. We had our fingers all over this and our footprints on this. This is just cleaning up the mess and anticipating potential liability coming down the road. That's exactly what this is. This is anticipating liability coming down the road not just for the cops, but the upper echelon, because right now there's a complete probe and they're going to be held liable. And someone said it earlier, I think it was Rob Luca, I'm not sure, that ultimately now that John Schell is the chief of the department, there's no one else to take the blame but him.
That's it. So roadblocks prohibited during a pursuit, road closure, method of restriction utilized for the purpose of preventing free passage of motor vehicles on a roadway by positioning department vehicles in a manner that blocks certain exits and roadways, thereby directing pursued vehicle to an area that will minimize the potential injury and allow for voluntary stop. Okay, here we go. Let's get into this now. Procedure. Upon observing a vehicle which is to be stopped or otherwise believing that a vehicle pursuit may be imminent, initiate the stop when feasible. Determine the necessity for initiating and continuing a vehicle pursuit by continuing. This is all the same, by the way. By considering the following: the nature of the fence, the time of the day, the weather conditions, the location and population density. Example, residential, commercial, proximity to schools and playgrounds, all the same. Capability of the department vehicle, same. Familiarity with the area, same. To terminate the pursuit when necessary, notify the radio dispatcher and citywide for radio dispatcher of the following: pursued vehicle is lost or pursued vehicle is terminated. That is a little addition. So here we go. This is also remains the same. You ready? Department policy requires that a vehicle pursuit be terminated whenever the risk to the uniformed members of the service and the public outweigh the danger to the community if the suspect is not immediately apprehended. Termination of the pursuit in totality can be initiated by the primary authorized emergency vehicle or a supervisor. Uniformed member of the service will not be subject to criticism and/or disciplinary action for self-termination of a pursuit if, based on judgment, the pursuit cannot be continued safely. So that is a huge, actually, I changed what I'm going to say. That is a huge change. So can be terminated by the primary authorized emergency vehicle, meaning you're the cop. You could say, I'm terminating the pursuit. You could do that. You couldn't have done that before. Now you could say, I'm terminating the pursuit. Obviously, you could have pulled off and said, all right, we're slowing down, but you couldn't have terminated. Now the primary authorized emergency vehicle or a supervisor. And then they add into the policy that the uniformed member of subject will not be subject of criticism or disciplinary action for self-termination of a pursuit if, based on the judgment, the pursuit cannot be continued safely. Now, that's a key line, because what was happening was the now Chief of Department John Schell, as the Chief of Patrol John Schell, was belittling supervisors who were terminating pursuits because the risks to the uniformed members in the service, to the uniformed members of service and the public were outweighed. The danger to them was outweighed by continuing this pursuit, but he wanted the pursuit regardless. He didn't care. He wanted these pursuits. He wanted pit maneuvers. He wanted people crashing. He didn't care the cost. We're cops. We're not letting this happen anymore, said John Schell, the cowboy. And now John Schell is being the chief of department. John Schell, he's totally different. Now don't worry about it. Nobody will ever criticize you. If someone criticizes you, tell me, I'll handle them.
I mean, John, if that's not reflective of how egotistical that this upper echelon is in this administration in comparison to other administrations, if this is not the most egotistical, egregious administration, you see it right here in this procedure. The fact that it has to be written in the procedure that you will not be criticized or disciplined, what does that mean, John? It means that people were being criticized and disciplined for terminating a pursuit, which to me is mind-blowing, right? You're involved in a pursuit and you're actually showing compassion and saying, hey, it doesn't make sense. It's just not worth pursuing this perpetrator who's not going to jail anyway, who's not going to face prosecution in this justice system anyway. And we could potentially kill a 5-year-old kid because we're trying to stop someone that didn't comply on a red light. Should they go through a red light? No. Should they comply with the police? Absolutely. But the bottom line is we need discipline. We need mature and professional police officers that have the discipline to say, you know what? It's not worth it at this point. Yes, you got away today, but we'll get you tomorrow. It's not the crime of the century. If you shoot out the window, God forbid, and we're actively, we have, excuse me, got a hell of a call today. But if you have an active shooter in real time, in your eyesight, obviously we have to stop that. We have to stop someone who could create mass death. But in a situation like this, to me, it says people were being criticized because of the ego of John Schell. And we said it. We called it. It is what it is, right? Don't we always hear that? Hey, come on, kid. It is what it is. But you know what? Sometimes out of bad comes some good. And it's a good thing that was actually written in there, that the police officer in the primary authorized emergency vehicle can make the determination to terminate the pursuit. So as far as I'm concerned, as we're reading, that's the best thing that's been implemented so far.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's completely full of shit because the guy that was belittling everyone is now in charge of the entire department. So I don't believe that for 1 second, and I don't think anybody on the job actually believes any of this. So, that's the other thing. Are they going to feel safe? I mean, listen to me. Don't worry if you feel safe or not. Just do it and record him. He calls you in the office. He calls your phone. Record him. Send it to us. We'll put it out online. Screw him. He's a loser. His career is short-lived. He's going to be getting 3 quarters because his ankles can't hold his body weight, not because of any injuries he sustained on the job. So if the pursuit is terminated, uniform members will attempt to obtain sufficient information to effect the apprehension. Uniform member of the service who initiate a pursuit for grand larceny of a motor vehicle must be able to clearly articulate their particularized basis for believing that the subject vehicle is stolen. A vehicle pursuit is not authorized based solely on the fact that a subject vehicle is fleeing a vehicular stop. A vehicle pursuit is not authorized for a vehicle engaged in reckless driving unless the vehicle fleeing is being used as a means that can cause serious physical injury or death to a uniformed member of service or other person present. So if the car is not looking to run people over, you can't stop it. This is all new. And it's also saying to you that what this is clearing up is, because this is what cops do, right? You go to stop someone, they flee on you, and the cop puts over vehicle pursuit. And then Central comes over and says, what's it in regards to? And then there's a pause, and they're like, possible GLA, Central.
Crickets.
Possible GLA, Central. Because and it's an older guy that has a little bit more time on the job that actually comes over, and not the person that's involved in the pursuit, and and possible GLA, Central. And so what they're saying is, no, unless you ran that plate and then you attempt to pull it over, you ran that plate and that plate comes back stolen, that is not a possible GLA. So you can't do it anymore. This is written first time. This is brand new to this policy.
I gotta laugh because that's when the funny stuff would come out in the radio. When we were working and people would ask, all right, what's he wanted for? Everybody wants to know what the person's wanted for, because the reality is everyone wants to know, is the reward outweigh the risk, right? If someone's involved in a pursuit, even if it's a foot pursuit, people always want to know what's he wanted for, right? Because if you said a bag of marijuana, everyone would laugh at you. No one's going to go out and chase someone for a bag of marijuana. So it's the same thing, right? No one's going to chase anyone for a bag of marijuana on a foot pursuit. Why are we doing it in a car? Which to me is far more dangerous than in a foot pursuit, because once you're in a car, you now have what can be utilized as a weapon, right? A car is a fantastic thing. It's necessary for life, but when used improperly, we're talking about 5,000, 10,000 pounds, depending on what type of vehicle you're driving, that could be used as a weapon. It could be more ineffective than the actual initiative to have what you feel is good judgment to stop a potential perpetrator. But to me, you know what, John? And I agree with you. John. There's no doubt about it. We spent almost 20 years with the police department, almost 40 years combined together here. And you and I both know that even though this is now written on paper, we can't change John Schell. We can't change his ego. And this is just on paper, but it's not going to change anything. If John Schell's ego feels slighted because someone stopped the pursuit and it's in opposition to his ego, they're still going to be held to pay. There's no doubt about it.
So upon initiating a pursuit, immediately activate your body-worn camera. We're going to do an episode on the body-worn cameras because the capability of that camera is it actually has an 18-hour playback. So like myself and Eric told you over 2 years ago, that thing is constantly recording you regardless. There's no way when you put it on, it just goes back 30 seconds. There has to be a larger window. From Axon itself, we've found out that it's 18 hours. That's from their own website. We're going to talk about that. We'll get into that in another episode. I'm not going to get into that right now. Immediately activate body-worn camera, all emergency signal devices, and vehicle-mounted video system if RMP is so equipped. Avoid using constant position on siren. What that means is they don't, and for all you rookies, and some of you that aren't even rookies anymore, and I see you guys driving around with your windows up and your head straight, and you have no idea that anybody's around or who's to the right of you or who's to the left of you. Your window should be cracked at all times so you could hear everything. The reason for this, avoid using constant position, is because if you keep your lights and sirens on when you're driving, guess what you can't hear? You can't hear the other sirens that are coming at you from a side street. So what you want to do is hit the button. The recorder should be hitting the button and listening to make sure that there's not going to be an accident. Because like myself and Eric were trained, you keep your windows down. You keep your radio very low. If you want to listen to the music, you keep it very low. You keep your radio on. If you're using those sirens, you use them sparingly. You let people know you're coming, but you're listening up as you're coming to other intersections for other sirens, other emergency vehicles coming. So you're not smacking in with another police car. On top of that, you have to be cognizant of the fact that everyone that's in New York City that's driving, they're driving with their windows up, regardless of the season, whether it's the winter or the summer. In the summer, they got the air conditioner on. In the winter, they got the heat on. They're driving with their windows up, their radio blasting, and they're singing and dancing in the car, and they're not looking to the right or the left like what I see most of you guys doing. And so that is a very important point in this patrol guide procedure that I think doesn't get taught because the experience is gone and lost in this department.
I'm just laughing because I'm thinking about the fun that I used to have on the job, and I never forget one of my first partners on the job, and we used to just laugh because we always just to do stupid things. We were in the car together, and when you say leave the window open, if it was the most cold, freezing day, like we would open all the windows and and see who would bitch out and say finally, all right, you got to close that window and make sure there was no heat on, or if it was a real hot day. Put up all the windows and would put the heat on and say, all right, go ahead. I dare you to open that window, see if you can handle it. So just reminds me, just funny things we used to do on the job. It changed so much. It used to be a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. We were working hard and we were busting ass out there. But at the same token, we had fun. But you're absolutely right, John, because we would always say that no matter what, I don't care if it's snowing outside. I don't care if it's an ice storm. You got to keep that window open. You got to keep that cracked open. You have to hear what's going on outside. And you're absolutely right. When you drive with those intersections especially, you have to make sure that radio siren is on and off so you don't get any washouts. So you're absolutely right. And so I can imagine with the khaki pants, we know there's fair leadership in that unit, what these guys are teaching them. I don't know what they're teaching, but they teach them to be cowboys on a rodeo. And this doesn't change much because I spoke to a couple of cops yesterday. And I spoke to a couple of people on the job right now, and they told me the amount of pressure that they're getting right now with overtime, not to segue to something different, but just to talk about of course, the khaki pants when it comes to vehicle pursuits and the blanket of protection that they have in comparison to the rest of the job. So I spoke to a couple of people yesterday, and they told me the amount of pressure on the job is just insane right now when it comes to overtime in the meetings. And right now they've got a specific amount of overtime that they can do. It's insane the amount of pressure that they have. And yet, it's not the commands that causes overtime problem. It's the problem is at one police plaza. And yet, what I'm hearing, it doesn't matter. When it comes to CRT, these guys are running around like crazy, and they're still making an excessive amount of overtime, and there's no accountability for them. But yet, general population throughout the entire police department is taking the burden for the actions of the upper echelon, which is Tier 1, and of course, Tier 2, which is khaki pants. Everyone else is paying the price.
Yeah, there's still an overtime code for on-duty booty. I'm fully positive of it. I have no doubt in my mind that on-duty booty is, the makeup of who the on-duty booty is with is probably a little different, but there's going to be a lot of things coming out this year, a lot of things in 2025, and you know what? It's actually very good to not be part of the dream team of the Gotham Brothers, because I wouldn't want those things to come out either, right? So we're going to hear all that stuff's going to come out. Shout out to Jonathan Fredericks, $4.99 to the podcast. I had the same good advice about the windows. Had them down so you could hear what was going on around you. There are zero funny radio drops anymore. Yeah, I mean, well, that they chipping up the radios. They could literally key. It comes up with your tax number as soon as you key the radio. So, some guys took it way too far. Some of it was hysterical, and I mean, I'm just glad I was alive for all those different times. No cell phones, none of that stuff, and and all this tracking. I'm just glad I was alive in many aspects, for those times.
So John, John, before you go ahead on this, do you foresee a new patrol guide procedure? Saying that on-duty booty will not be authorized. We're going to actually have this printed in the patrol guide procedure.
No, they can't do that so that they could continuously do it, and they'll be, there's no procedure for that. They will never write that down on paper, I think, and if they ever did, they'll call Jeffrey Madry to write it. He'll be the guy overseeing the policy. So and that's basically what it's like here. It's like calling Jeffrey Madry to tell you why on-duty booty is not authorized. So he'll write the procedure. It's the same thing as having John Shell write this procedure. It makes absolutely no sense that this procedure is written because of him. So, I don't think we need to get into the whole thing, but just to end off on this, if the pursuit is initiated by other than the Patrol Service Bureau precinct personnel, the immediate supervisor of those officers initiating the pursuit will perform the duties of the patrol supervisor, precinct originating pursuit throughout the procedure if available, regardless of the supervisor who initially directs and controls the pursuit. The patrol supervisor, precinct of occurrence, shall always monitor all uniformed members of the service engaged in the pursuit occurring within the precinct confines. That means when some little kids with tight khaki pants come in and you're the patrol supervisor, they are not in charge. When their lieutenant, who likes stepping on people's heads, who is being held down on the ground by two other cops, comes in your precinct, he is not in charge. You are. The patrol supervisor should broadcast any relevant local precinct condition over the radio division and citywide. Let him call his triple fat neck chief and cry about it. You're in charge. Terminate the pursuit. You're the one that's going to be holding the bag, and they're going to be sitting there while all these cars are up in the air and people are dead, and they're going to, I don't know, and they're going to go get overtime while they're playing Xbox, and you're going to be stuck with all this, and you're going to be going down the grand jury, and they're going to be making phone calls to Bragg to take them out. If the patrol supervisor is the primary or secondary authorized emergency vehicle, a supervisor of a higher rank, lieutenant, duty captain, etc., will perform the duties of the patrol supervisor. So if you're a sergeant, because we are looking out for you to not be tunnel vision into this, we're saying if you're the pursuing vehicle, you're the primary vehicle, guess what? You're not in charge. You're going to take notes from someone of a higher rank. And I think all in all, this is just saying what myself and Eric told you over 2 years ago when this moron was telling you everything else but that. We told you only pursue as a last resort when necessary in extreme circumstances only. We didn't even need to rewrite this procedure. This procedure restricts you further. It adds a little verbiage in it. But the moron who created this whole thing is the one enforcing this procedure. It's an absolute slap in the face to common sense. It's a slap in the face to the entire it's a slap in the face to the entire rank and file of the NYPD. This is an absolute joke.
I gotta laugh because it's the most iconic police department in the entire world, the largest police department. We always heard that it's comparable to be the 9th largest army in the entire world. And we have think about it. The tax-paying dollars that's wasted because of this ineffective upper echelon is absolutely useless and ridiculous that we have to spend time on actually revising this procedure, because I think the procedure was fine before. It was completely common sense that And the totality of circumstances was written in the procedure before this verbiage was actually changed. That does the reward outweigh the risk? And the bottom line is, for the most part, the answer is no, unless extreme dire circumstances, as we laid out numerous times on this podcast, right, John? We talk about someone who's an active shooter, shooting people outside the window, someone who just kidnapped someone who's committing active terrorism, trying to mow down people, something of that sort. But short of that, pretty much the answer is don't do it. Now, there are exceptional cases that we could probably talk about on a case-by-case basis. But for the most part, to actually waste time, to actually go into, to dive in, to change this procedure is a complete waste of time that we actually have to put in that verbiage. I mean, think about it. This is the most iconic police department, the largest in the world, and we actually have to put in the verbiage that if you actually make a common sense decision that makes sense for the public and for the police officers involved in a pursuit, that by terminating it, that you won't be criticized, that we actually have to put that verbiage, just shows you this administration is a complete waste. But again, it's authorized by triple fat neck John Shell himself, who is the one that perpetuated and pushed this whole idea anyway. So it's ironic that he's actually the chief of the department. So if we look at the mistakes, right, because the police department, John, you and I both know it. The only time the police department puts pen to paper is when they identified a problem and it got so bad that they actually have to make a correction. They never take a preemptive strike on anything. This is a knee-jerk reaction. And if we actually read the procedure of what has to be fixed and corrected, the fault and the blame is on John Shell. It's because of John Shell that we had to make a new procedure, and it's John Shell that authorized the procedure. I think it's complete ironic. It's a complete joke. And based on that, the fact that he's the chief of the department is another slap in the face to the entire rank and file. It's a slap in the face to the public that, hey, we can make all these mistakes and no one's ever held accountable. I mean, look, this is the only police department and this is the only organization where the first deputy commissioner could completely screw up her job. We have an excessive amount of overtime, complete abuse, not held liable, not held accountable, and she still has her job. VSS Ventura, shout out to you, brother. $20, coffee and donuts. More procedures to bog down the officers on the street and create confusion. Morons in charge, and a dream team that couldn't win the Special Olympics if the other competitors were all blindfolded and suffering from polio. Yeah, you're absolutely right, brother. This administration is not the dream team. It's just a bad dream. And we need to put them away, and we need a complete overhaul.
I don't know, bro. I think that they're doing great. I think you're just a hater. I think you want to be on the what's it called? On the dream team, or you want to be part of the Gotham Brothers. That's what it is. Yeah. VS Ventura has $20. More procedures to bog down officers on the street and create confusion. Morons in charge and a dream team that couldn't win the Special Olympics if the other competitors were all blindfolded and suffering from polio. Hysterical. I mean, dude, it's where could, I mean, it's ridiculous at this point. It's absolutely infuriating. I honestly don't know how I would last if I had 20 years on and I was still on the job. I really don't. I don't know how anybody, and that's why you see all these rookies. That's why you see all these rookies on the job, is because people with 20 years are like, I'm out of here. People with 19 years are like, when I hit my 20 years, I'm out of here. People with 17 years, when I hit my 20 years, I'm out of here. This is ridiculous. I'm being told what to do by these losers that caused the procedure in the first place. I'm being scrutinized for my overtime by the losers that caused me to be scrutinized by my overtime because they were stealing money and they were doing on-duty booty. Like, it's absolutely disgusting. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting.
That's my point. I taught these cops, I taught the lieutenants that are integrity control officers throughout the entire city, and the pressure that they're getting, the immense pressure right now, is insane. They're paying the entire burden for the mistakes of the upper echelon. I always talk about the Democrats pushing the Munchausen syndrome, and then they want to treat the symptoms. It's the same thing here. John Shell caused the problems for the vehicle pursuits, and now John Shell wants to treat the symptoms and fix the problem. And then the problem of excessive overtime and the abuse of overtime is at the top tiers, right? Tier 1, nepotism, and the upper echelon of the police department, and also Tier 2, the khaki pants. And yet Tier 3, the general population of the police department, is paying the burden for it. And right now, some cop that spends an hour on a face-to-face relief post has to explain himself. And again, this has been tradition of the police department. We're talking about a UF 49, Universal Form 49, which is a report that is newsworthy or something that needs to be disseminated through the police department. And right now what I'm hearing is any overtime that's questionable in a precinct by a commanding officer has to be accompanied with a 49 right now to explain why this overtime was accrued. When police officers right now, their boots are on the ground, they're working hard. You know what's funny, John? We thought that morale would probably get better, than the job would be running on autopilot, but it's actually getting worse right now because they're putting so much pressure on the general population of the police department for mistakes that they never caused. The mistakes are at the upper echelon, and not even mistakes, intentional mistakes, because it's a criminal enterprise at the upper echelon of the police department.
Yeah, absolutely. So any last words on the vehicle pursuits? My thing is this. Just stick to what we've been doing for the last 20 years, last 30 years. It was never a part of the public safety plan until these morons came into place. They pushed these pursuits. And another point on the vehicle pursuits, they looked at all the pursuits. There was about, I forget the exact number, but it was about 2,400, 2,500 pursuits happened in 2024. And 25% of those ended in a vehicle crash and property damage and injury. 25%. And how do you think that number correlates with the amount of people that were actually prosecuted for that? It's not even anywhere near that. It's not only did it have a zero impact on crime, and that's by the numbers alone, it not only had a zero impact on crime, it actually took away from public safety on New York City street. You had a great chance of being run over by some dumb rookie or someone fleeing them for something stupid. And it was never a part of the public safety plan in New York City whenever broken windows came in effect. So any last words on that? We got Mighty Fuzz Young waiting.
Well, before we get Mighty Fuzz on, which I'm excited to have right now, awesome guest, by the way, great friend to John and myself. We became very friendly with Mighty Fuzz. Awesome guy, really, just a hell of a guy. Such a nice guy. Every time I speak to him, I'm like, wow, this is, and unfortunately, I haven't even had a chance to meet him in person yet. And we've been on the phone with him for over a year now. Just awesome guy. We're going to have a great interview with him. But I just want to leave it with this. When it comes to this vehicle pursuit and the press release and the patrol guide procedure, this pen to paper and in reference to vehicle pursuits means nothing if it's authorized by the chief of the department and he doesn't actually take accountability for it. It means nothing. It doesn't change a damn thing until we get an overhaul of leadership. Because until John Shell says, hey, listen, I'm the same guy that advocated for vehicle pursuits as a crime-fighting tactic, we identify that clearly there's a lot of mistakes with this, and the reward did not outweigh the risk. We've evaluated it. I evaluated myself, and I take full responsibility for it. And this is why we're making the changes going forward. Unless he actually publicly says that, which he never will, then it doesn't change a damn thing. And I'll yield right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll bring up to the stage a good buddy, Mighty Fuzz Young. Happy New Year, brother. What's going down, dude?
How are you guys, man? I miss you guys, bro.
Outstanding, brother.
You guys are forever.
That's it. You took a social media fast, bro. We haven't seen you. You haven't been around. No podcasting.
Yeah, man. And let me tell you, it's comfy and cozy when you unplug from the internet, guys. Let me tell you, but comfortability is the enemy of progress, right? It's 2025. We got to step back up. But it's been 4 years of straight working with the du jour, doing personal stuff. So we just, we unplugged for 60 days through the holiday season, and we're back at it.
And brother, the stuff that you guys are doing right now is historic. I was just telling the audience right now, I said, here's an awesome guy. I said, I feel like you're one of my best friends, and yet I never met him actually in person, just to show you how important it is, like the connection you can have with people. We talk all the time on the phone. I'm like, man, just a hell of a human being, and the work that you put into this. And I remember asking you, like, what's the end goal? Like, what's the end goal of this? And you said, you want to hold people accountable. You want you want things to go back to the people. And I'm like, that's what this is about. No matter what, if there's a win here, I think the win has already been established, that the people are holding our politicians accountable, right? And I think that's ultimately what this is about. I think it's a win already. No matter what happens in the court system, it's a win already, just to show that the people actually have power and strength when they stick together. So What are your thoughts right now as far as this being historic? Did you think you'd get to this point? Are you shocked, or did you expect it?
Well, first, thank you for the kind words, brother. We are brothers in arms, all three of us, and we come at it from different angles. But at the end of the day, we have mutual respect for each other, and that's what matters. And I think that's what we lost: the integrity of men. Right? We need more men that are just have a moral compass, that are doing the right thing, even if it means it may come at their expense. So you two men are literally epitomize that, and I just want to congratulate you guys on all the success that you guys had. You guys are walking a fine line. It's really hard to talk about the establishment when the people are attached to the establishment. So you guys walk a very fine line on separating the people from the system. And I just want to give you guys your flowers and thank you for having me on. So the du jour, man, the du jour is it's tough work, right? And I have the opportunity to watch great people, selfless people, specifically women of New York City, of all walks of life, learn law. Just regular people learning law, day in, day out, 5 days a week, no fanfare, no online stuff. And they just want to make a change for New York. They've realized that, protesting and rallying, there's a place for that, right? Everybody, we all play a small part in the big picture, but we weren't getting change, and to wait every 2 to 4 years for elected official to make changes and make all the promises and lip service that we've been hearing, right? And not make change. We realize that it's up to we the people. And then when you do the homework, you find out, when you step out of your red paradigm or blue paradigm, you start realizing we were supposed to the whole time. We were supposed to have the checks and balances in this great republic. So, just going down this journey with them and just watching them work. And like you said, we can revel the fact that we've already made it to the state Supreme Court. We have a long way to go, but at the end of the day, to watch a member of the du jour in the state Supreme Court do so well yesterday was beautiful to watch.
Yeah, so 680 people on this live stream. So what we're going to bring up, and I'm going to need a little help because I'm having a little trouble with this Telegram thing. So I'm going to need you guys to walk me through it. But what Mighty Fuzz and the New York du jour and the Queens du jour and the Brooklyn du jour, what the work they're doing is they're holding elected officials accountable to the oath they swore. So the du jour took New York City Mayor Eric Adams to court, along with Alvin Bragg, Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, and said they are not upholding their oath. Basically they're attempting to put them in default and remove them. So they brought that case to court. And what they brought the case to court on, the merits of it, is that Eric Adams, as the mayor of New York, has the authority to place an emergency mandate. He has the authority to place a mandate in place. He has the ability to put an emergency order in place. Now, I will sit here and say that the mandate, the way that they implemented the mandate on city workers and the tactics they used were illegal, but that's not what they're going after. That's not what they're attacking. They're saying, yes, he had the authority as mayor. He had the authority to implement this mandate. However, he did not have the authority, and he overstepped his authority by empowering and weaponizing businesses I don't want to even say weaponizing, forcing businesses to enforce the mandate. Private companies, he way overstepped his authority on that. There's no question about that. And the reason that Alvin Bragg comes into play is because numerous times when they tried to rectify this with Eric Adams, they CC'd Alvin Bragg. Alvin Bragg, as the district attorney of Manhattan, has a duty to investigate. And he failed to do so. And so what we're going to watch is an 11-minute clip. And I want you people to tell me who's the lawyer. Because there's a citizen prosecuting this case against Eric Adams. And then you see a lawyer, a Juris Doctorate from corporate counsel. Corporation counsel come up, and then you see an attorney from Alvin Bragg's office come up, and you're saying, wait a minute, Those people are attorneys and the other person's a private citizen. So it's an 11-minute clip. This is historic because this is the first time regular citizens are holding elected officials accountable to their oath. It's absolutely unbelievable. I watched it last night. I watched it about 4 times because I was like, I don't even know if anyone understands what the hell's happening here. But this is the pathway going forward. No longer can people, it's called a summary inquiry, people. It's called a summary inquiry of holding elected officials accountable. No longer is it Joe Borelli, who's in his last term, could just sit around on his ass, put his hands on his ass for his last term, his last 3 years in his term, or his last 2 years, and say, I don't care anymore. I'm good. I got a no-show job for the next 2 years. No, you're working for us. Yeah. Same way a public servant, a police officer, a transit worker. No. Yeah, you're elected, but you're still accountable to we the people. And for the first time in history, in New York history, we the people are holding elected officials accountable. I'm going to bring this up on the screen. You guys got anything to add while we do that?
No, that's why I'm saying that no matter what, that's why I say, Fuzz, this is a win already. No matter what happens in the courts, right? We don't know what the judge is going to rule. But the bottom line is that you made it this far and the voices were already heard. And what I saw so far was so impressive. And John and I were both talking about it. You can't even see who the attorney is at this point because it's so impressive. It shows the knowledge and the passion behind this that you got to this point. You know, because if I was to ask you, what's the common ground? What's the commonality amongst the people involved in the du jour movement? Because these are people from all different walks of life. Not necessarily cops, and they're not law enforcement officials, they're not politicians, but they're the people. And that brings us way back to when this country was founded, our forefathers that knew that we could get to this point, that people would do exactly what John said. Sit on their asses and say, you know what? I'm already going to get a pension. I'm getting a pension from this. It's not about serving the people, but you took it back. And it's at the point right now, no matter what happens with this judge, I think at this point, it sends a message to other politicians that, hey, the people actually have a say. No longer can you have this ideology that you can just sit on your asses, do nothing, and have the public serve you. It's time that you serve the public. So the work that you put into it, it shows. We can't just say, hey, they just decided to serve them and challenge the oath. There's work behind this, a significant amount, and the commonality and the fact that all the people got together and said, we are the people, just it brings us back to our forefathers. I mean, think about how intelligent they were back then to foresee that we would get to this point. I mean, they were young men. I think the oldest one was Benjamin Franklin, was at the time in his 40s. But these were all young men, maybe 19, 20 years old, that knew we would get to this point. And so shout out to you, brothers. Really impressive.
Thank you, brother.
So, Greg, you got anything to add before we play this video? And before we do that, do you see this up on the screen?
Yes. Yes, okay. I see it.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I just want to add that what you're about to watch is where we're in the appellate court at the New York State Supreme Court, and essentially our goal is to kick it back down to the lower courts, that they didn't review it fully, and honestly, like Jimmy Wagner said, Jimmy Wagner was in the courtroom when he seen us when we were in the lower courts, that they didn't go after the bulk of the case. They went after the fact of taxpayers, all the arguments that had nothing to do with the actual case, and that's why we got it appealed. We feel very confident after you guys watch this. We feel very confident it will get kicked back.
Fuzz, before he plays, can you just tell the people how long it took to get to this point where you actually had these oral arguments? I think that's what's historic. It shows the work behind it. How long did it take from the time that it was served to actually get to the point of oral arguments at this point?
So
2022, I believe we started this. It may be 2021, either 21 or 22. And honestly, they've been dragging. They use COVID to give us our answers in the lower courts. They use COVID as an excuse to extend it. They try to smoke you out. And look, we're already at the end of Eric Adams, but we're not going to stop because he's going to get it. Let's say he retires or he steps down. But it's been, they just drag it on. Yeah, or goes to jail, right? Hopefully. But yeah, like I said, I was just trying to shine a light on the fact that, I'm just a messenger, we're a whole group of people, and tirelessly these women have been working, man. It's really incredible to watch the selflessness. It's honestly beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, so like Fuzz is saying, they're in the appellate court now because their first court, when they first brought this to court, the court threw it out, saying on all these baseless claims, not attacking the merits of the lawsuit, saying that they never proved that they were taxpayers, and basically doing all of this legal jargon and mumbo jumbo. That when the de jure regular people looked at it, they're like, wait a minute. This doesn't even, that's not even, we're not even, you're giving merits on throwing this lawsuit out that don't even exist. So listen to this. It's an 11-minute clip. This is history, people. This is something that going forward, this is going to be a vital part of restoring New York City and restoring the Republic as a whole, restoring the United States of America. I don't care who's in power. I don't care if it's Donald Trump. I don't care if it's Joe Biden. I don't care who it is. Our elected officials need to be held accountable to us. They ultimately are representatives of the people, and they serve us, and they got to stop treating us like we're peasants and they're kings. This is not the society we created. This is not America. This is a beautiful thing to watch. So let's watch this clip.
Good afternoon. My name is Andrea Bureau. I'm one of the appellants in Bureau versus Adams. Pretty much we brought this case to the appellate court because our case was erroneously dismissed in the lower courts. One, there was no cross motion whatsoever when it came to this matter. There was only one motion to dismiss. The secondary motion, I guess you can kind of claim it as that, but even that was iffy. There was supporting documents for a motion to dismiss, but no actual motion for a secondary respondent. So there was no cross motion. It was admitted on the transcript, which the appellate court already has. Additionally, the lower court decided to interpret Section 1109, the summary inquiry, which we filed against Eric Adams and DA Alvin Bragg, improperly.
This isn't on the screen?
They decided to add in their own terminology.
This isn't on the audio.
Just the audio, bro.
Ah, this is weird. Why isn't this on the screen?
I was wondering. I think at some point it was supposed to pop up. Like,
all right. Let's just listen to it. Let's just listen to it.
Okay.
Just listen to her. It's basically it's Andrea in the courtroom. Just listen to it. There's nothing on the screen. This is her in the appellate court. I don't know. Something's weird with Telegram. I don't know these videos. I couldn't even pull it out. So let's just keep listening to it.
And basically decided to put their own spin on it to make sure, in a way, like we wouldn't even get to the playing field. One of the things they did was we needed to have specific knowledge. Nowhere in 1109 does it require specific knowledge of the governmental official to have violated their duty. As long as you have knowledge, we proved to them with the supporting evidentiary documents of the notices that were already sent to Adams, as well as CC to Alvin Bragg. So we proved that we had knowledge of the violations that we were raising in the petitions. That was one. Two, according to them, they said we never established that we were taxpayers. There was no requirement in 1109 to establish that. It says as long as 5 citizens and taxpayers bring the summary inquiry to the court, we would be heard. So pretty much there's no way there was nothing within the parameters of the 1109 within the city charter to basically give us what we needed to establish, which would be deemed as taxpayer. During our argument, offered to rectify any misinformation or missing information. The justice at that time basically said, as long as I'm willing to provide it on the record, as she would not accept any other documentations post-order of the order of show cause that she approved on our initial filings, that it would be fine. I had no problem with it. We were willing to basically provide whatever information was necessary on the record. We were never given the opportunity. The case was basically shut down halfway through. Majority of the opportunity was given to the respondents to argue their portion of the case. We were given maybe half the time, if that. Additionally, this case was dismissed as a matter of as if it was argued as a tort or an Article 78. This is not a tort case. This is not an Article 78. This is a summary inquiry, a judicial review for violation of duty, which happened in both cases. We raised both of them properly within our petitions. We made sure that the justices knew that the summary inquiry was brought against Eric Adams, our mayor, for violation of oath of office, as well as various other violations. On top of that, we brought in Alvin Bragg because of the fact that every single notice that we sent to Eric Adams, he was CC'd. And according to 18 USC 4, if you are made aware of a crime, you have to initiate an investigation into that crime. If you cannot, you need to forward it to either a party or an office that is willing to investigate and or can remedy it. None of that happened from the DA's office. We were forced to bring him into the summer inquiry. We're under the 18 USC 4. So pretty much we made sure that our petitions had all of that. We attached every exhibit into the lower court. We made sure that we proved to them, according to the lower justice, she reviewed and read our documentation. However, upon reviewing her dismissal, we're not sure which evidence or documentation she reviewed. Most of the information in her dismissal sided with the respondents and the fact that we didn't meet the threshold for CAR, which once again was never established within the city charter for section 1109 as a requirement. However, upon reviewing that, we did meet it. And then on top of that, then to say, even though we didn't meet the threshold for CAR, she never even entertained to review CAR. So if she never reviewed it, how do we know we never met the thresholds for it? And so there was, once again, there was various information there. So there was a lot of misapplying, misinterpretation, misuse of authority when it came to the things that we were challenging. They kept arguing that based on the executive laws that are already in place, that our mayor had every right to issue the executive orders and emergency executive orders that he did. Nowhere in our documents did we ever challenge the fact that our mayor had the authority to write an executive order or to write an emergency executive order. That is part of his mayoral duties. There's part of his powers. He's allowed to write them. He's allowed to enact them. What he's not allowed to do is then direct enforcement as a matter of law upon the men and women of New York to then, to further then use three-letter agencies and or other departments of New York City to then further that enforcement of it. That's where he overstepped his authority. And that's what we were challenging. And
Thank you. All right. So let's stop that right there. And then we're going to get to the next people. But just based upon that, what you hear her saying right there is she's saying that Eric Adams overstepped his authority. The judge threw the case out saying something completely different, saying that they're trying to say that he overstepped his authority by issuing the mandate in the first place, which isn't in their lawsuit. The judge was attempting to put in claims about that they were putting this as an Article 78, when in fact this is not. They were putting rules and regulations around that. This is a summary inquiry. So basically trying to just get rid of this case and not speak on the merits of the lawsuit and throw it out on technicalities that don't even exist. So I think she did a great job at explaining that. Sorry that the video's not up. Did we miss anything there, Fuzz? Is there something that like we should point out about what that testimony highlighted?
I mean, so it gets better when we go to their arguments, because he brings up again the 1109 and establishing the 1109, which clearly he doesn't have any grounds on. I found that you're senior counsel, man. What are you doing? Like, this is literally, it's not in the 1109. The definition of the 1109 and the breakdown of the 1109 has nothing to do with establishing and the taxpayers. So this was, I don't understand how they, like, as a game plan from their end, I don't know why they went with that argument.
Fuzz, I'm a firm believer that things happen for a reason. Everything happens on purpose. And I actually think it's actually better that we can't even see her and we just listen to the audio, because I think her words were so powerful. And when she laid out, it was so clear and concise that we know what she said is we're knowledgeable. We've done our homework. We know the orders, the powers, the authority of the mayor of the city of New York. And we're not challenging the fact that he has the ability and the authority and power to make executive orders, but he doesn't have the power to put sanctions and to have, when she says the three-letter word agencies, to say that, to have the authorities to push sanctions and restrictions on the people. And that I thought was powerful, and almost better that this was audio and not visual, because it really forced you to listen to these words. And it was so clear, it was so concise, and clearly behind that, I could tell it. I can always say I can read a room and make my observations. It's clear that the homework was done, that this wasn't just on a whim. So it was impressive. I tell you, I'm actually blown away by it. I thought it was very lucid, very clear, very concise.
So now there's going to be two more parts to this, three more parts. It's going to be corporation counsel representing Eric Adams, and it's going to be assistant district attorney from Alvin Bragg's office
Victor Olds.
representing what were their names?
It's Amanda Abada and
She's
Victor
from-
Olds.
Okay, and then Amanda's from corporation counsel.
Senior counsel.
The other gentleman's from Alvin Bragg's office, and then Andrea's going to come back up and respond to them. So, and I think when you listen to these people and then you listen to Andrea's response, it's clear as day that I don't care what the judges have done here. I don't care what they decide here. The decision ultimately rests on we the people. And when I hear their responses here, how incompetent and inept, and how they're trying to shift the conversation and throw in lies, it shows me clear as day that the merits of this case are huge. Not only the merits of this case, but they're actually afraid for this case to go forward. They're afraid for this case to get national attention because they're afraid of what's going to happen in the courts going forward. So listen to this.
Your Honor, my name is Amanda Abata, and I represent the mayor, Mayor Adams. In order to just sort of simplify this, I would ask to just take any questions from the panel if you have any for me. Otherwise, I'll rest on the brief.
So your motion, you made a motion to dismiss, but defendant Bragg did not, correct?
We made a motion to dismiss, and I leave it to him, I guess, to speak to, I guess, the procedural posture in which the DA brought his motion. But if there are no further questions, I will rest on the brief. Thank you so much.
Thank you both. People versus Richburg.
He wasn't here.
May I?
Go ahead.
No, she's talking. Are you talking to him?
So they're going to have the DA come up. He didn't ask for any time to speak. He doesn't even know the court's rules. So,
right.
But now he's going to come up. They will move into the next case. So here comes the DA. Here comes Bragg's DA.
Thank you.
Apologies, Your Honor. May it please the court, Victor Olds for respondent Alvin Bragg. Your Honor, I just wish to make three quick points. First, Justice Kim's decision and order should be affirmed because the appellants have neglected to establish that they meet the standing requirements under Section 1109. They had multiple opportunities to do that. They failed to do that. There are only 6 categories of individuals who can bring an 1109 summary inquiry. In order to do that, one has to establish that they are taxpayers. And they did not do that in this instance. Secondly, Your Honor, this case really should be affirmed because on the grounds of mootness. The initial order that was issued by Mayor Adams in March 12th of 2020 was effectively rescinded by Mayor Adams on March 7th, 2022. And as this court and many other courts have held, when there is no live viable issue, the matter is moot. There is nothing to indicate that this issue will resurface. The Key to the City program has effectively been rescinded. In fact, it was rescinded 7 months before the petitioners filed their petition on October 27th of 2022. And lastly, Your Honor, even had the appellants satisfied, I just finished my sentence, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Even if the appellant satisfied the standing and requirement, and this had not been moved, what they are urging upon the court doesn't exist.
I've had these dental implants for 6 months now, and here's the shape I was in before getting them.
1 second.
4 hours.
Hey, Fuzz, this guy can't even come up for air. He's drowning.
The district attorney has a duty to investigate. Nowhere is that found in Section 700 of the New York County law. The obligation is to prosecute, not to investigate. And so for those reasons, we would urge that the decision of Justice Kim be affirmed.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
So this is Andrea now. Andrea is going to ask for more time to dispute that.
So this is going to be the knockout blow. You ready? So they just gave their points. Now Andrea is going to rebut the points that they just made and tell me this isn't clear and concise and what they said absolutely makes zero sense at this point. Watch this. This is the knockout blow.
Thank you for giving me the minute to respond to the DA's statements for all argument. One, once again, I would like to address the fact that Mr. Olds is presenting the case as if it was an Article 78. We're not, once again, contesting the policy. We never contested the policy. That's where an Article 78 would thrive, contesting now the policy, and at that point, rescinding the emergency executive order would then make that contest moot. However, we are, at this point, contesting the authority of even enacting that original emergency executive order. That's one. Two, according to Section 1109, and I quote, right? It says a summary inquiry into any alleged violation or neglect of duty in relation to property, government, or affairs of the city may be conducted under an order to be made by any justice of the Supreme Court in the 1st, 2nd, or 11th Judicial District on application of the mayor, the comptroller, the public advocate, any 5 council members, the commissioner of investigations, or any 5 citizens who are taxpayers, supported by an affidavit to the effect that one or more officers, employees, or other persons herein named have knowledge, information, concerns of such alleged violations or neglect of duty. Nowhere in 1109 does it say that we need to, at any point, establish anything other than filing what we need to. All of our documentations were accepted by the court. Therefore, the assumption lied within the court that we have met all the criteria. Once again, at oral arguments, I presented to provide any missing information if need be. The opportunity was never presented and we were cut off. Okay. However, the district attorney was given a lot more leniency than we were ever provided as a pro se litigant, including not even accepting our affidavits of service for their documents that we have served them. Okay. We request as petitioners for this summary inquiry to be rescinded back to the Supreme Court and for it to continue at this point. We have jumped through enough hurdles as to prove that there was overstepping of authority when it comes to any regarding the mayoral duties, as well as Alvin Bragg, who may not have under New York County laws, but under federal laws did violate their duty. And according to the oath of office taken by that lovely DA's office, he did violate it.
Thank you. Thank you all.
So that there you hear it there. I mean, that was awesome, dude. Honestly, unbelievable.
First of all, Fuzz, that was so impressive. You know, I would love to know what Andrew's background is because it was so impressive. And we talked about this. You can't even tell who the attorney is. But you know what I love what she threw in there and said that Bragg's office is getting the benefit of the doubt and all this information is allotted while you're serving pro se and not given the same amenities. That was great that she threw that in. If anybody, I mean, I'm sure most people know what pro se is, but just in case you don't know what pro se is, pro se means when you represent yourself. That I thought was the beauty in that part of the conversation, in the statement, because that basically says that we the people are representing ourselves. So the fact she threw that in, first of all, to me, that was a slam dunk. I mean, she killed it. She just destroyed their argument, you know, because the bottom line is they had no argument. That guy, he was drowning. He was drowning in that conversation. There was zero argument there, trying to get in some technicality and trying to insult we the people by saying, are you taxpayers? That was great. If you could tell me, does she have any law background or what's her background? Because it was super impressive.
Yeah, so she was a paralegal. She was a paralegal for a law firm. And last minute, we thought there were going to be 2 speakers. It was going to be Jeannie and Andrea. And the last minute, they said only one could speak. And we went with Andrea because she knows, you know, that the template of how a courtroom works. And it's just that this is what we're talking about, guys. Like the regular people just learning it, no lawyers or nothing, and just really want to encourage people to have the confidence to try. You know, immediately we get scared or we put these hurdles in front, but we can honestly do this. It's very intimidating, right? Like even for myself watching in the courtroom, I'm like, damn, I am nowhere near that. I don't know the process, but I'm for me and my wife, we're trying to learn it so we can. So we're never in a position where we don't know. I mean, John, since the last time we spoke, I hear that you've been educating yourself very well, brother. I'm very, very impressed because you seem like with your court case, you're learning the ins and outs of it as well. So this is what we're talking about, just people stepping up, you know, and learning it for themselves.
Yeah, no, dude, it's like I said, I think that it's what I watched is completely incompetent people try to talk down to competent people that understand the law. And I love the fact, and I know you guys couldn't see it on the screen, but when Andrea's responding to Corporation Counsel and she's responding to the district attorney, she's looking directly at them and they're looking down because they know she's right. And even the judges on the bench up top are looking at each other like, he's right. You know, and it shows clear as, I mean, you listen to that. I mean, I would hate to see what would happen. Well, I would love to see it, but I don't think it would be good for them if there was actually a debate had between those three and you just gave them a few minutes to argue and talk points, because clearly they had no point. They were trying to they were trying to push our lack of legal terminology and our lack of legal knowledge to just basically sweep this under the rug. What happened and what they were hanging their hats on was, oh, they never proved that they were taxpayers. Well, guess what? They're all taxpayers. So, but what Andrea brought to them was, well, it doesn't matter because we submitted all the documents to you. We told you if we're missing anything, let us know. You didn't do that. So for you not doing that, the onus is on you. And we could prove that right now, by the way. And you're trying to throw out the merits of the case because we didn't prove that we were taxpayers. What kind of slap in the face is that? And they had no argument. And again, they kept putting, and that's exactly what they did with my lawsuit too, with my religious exemption, is they were like that, saying that my religious exemption is rooted in vaccine misinformation. I'm like, I never said anything about the vaccine. What are you talking about? The word's not even in there. It's just other than I can't take it because of these are my beliefs. But they said rooted in vaccine and misinformation. And that's exactly what they try to do. They play on words and they talk down to you because you don't have a Juris Doctorate. And we just saw a paralegal rip up two attorneys. I mean, honestly, kudos to that. And dude, could you just let us know how much you guys are making, how much money all of you are making for doing
bro, we're caking, baby.
And there's hours and hundreds of hours of learning this and getting involved with it. Can you let everyone know, like, are you making $400,000 on the casting couch?
Big time.
Like,
big time, bro. Big time. We're grifting crazy.
On duty booty?
Yeah. You know, but that's what it's going to take, right? It's going to take people that are willing to get uncomfortable and not look at it like to make money, just to make change. Because if we don't do it, we have a lawless government. You guys point out for the local New York City government how lawless they are, you know? And it's like, what do you do when they run the enforcement? What do you do when they got the lawyers in the pocket? What do you do when the politicians are all playing along because they want to just keep on the up in the political spectrum? Like, what do you do? And it's we the people. And doesn't mean grab your musket, like I always say, grab your musket and go to the line. It means education. Like, and this is what we're seeing. We're seeing the reflection now of that.
I think there's several layers to peel back here, right? I had spoken about before. I had said it was oppressive when she speaks about pro se, because it's exactly that, right? Because they're trying to use the weight of the courtroom, the fact that they have a Juris Doctorate, or they have a law degree, or they're esquires, they're attorneys, and that they have a relationship with the judge, that they are afforded all the amenities to make sure that they have all the proper required documents. And basically what she said is, we the people, since we're here pro se and we're representing ourselves, we were completely slighted and completely insulted. Just the fact that they went to that point to say, oh, you're not taxpayers, to me was completely insulting, right? But there's numerous layers to peel back here. And what you peel back here also is what you did was you sent a message to the entire country. You've now set the tone for any other counties or any other jurisdictions in this country for people to stand up and say, hey, we are the people. You created something historic. You now set the tone, and people are definitely going to piggyback and say, you know what? We can bring it back to the people in our area as well. So this is a step in the right direction. That's why I think no matter what happens with this judge, because we've seen corrupt court systems, our justice system has completely failed. And it shows right away. You exposed that we have incompetence in our justice systems, in our courts, and in our politicians. That's why I thought the beauty in this was not having a visual and having the audio. When you just listen, you ask yourself, wow, who's in charge here? And you know what he said, Fuzz? We the people, we're in charge. We're the ones that can actually take this back. So to me, I don't care what that judge says. I think he won already. I feel like now, even just sitting here, like, wow, we won. You know what?
Right. Thank you. You know, Eric, you always separate. You always say, "Oh, we the people." Like we're all we the people. You know, even the people that do work for the government. So the main thing is that we have to. The patriotism was towards the freedom of man and the freedom of our neighbor, and I think we lost that. We somehow came patriotic to the government. They did a really good job in doing that. I think now just people just have to wake up. It's very sobering, right? There's a big hill in front of us. You know, we have a corrupt government on in every level. Luckily, we have a new administration coming in. We will hold him accountable, just like anybody else, like John said. And it's a new day. It's a new day. It's 2025. People are waking up and getting educated. So I'm honestly very excited for 2025.
No, absolutely. But Buzz, I wasn't kidding, dude. Could you just tell everybody how much you guys are making? Like, honestly, you guys are putting hundreds of hours of work in. Like, what real benefit other than educating the people and holding our elected officials accountable are you guys doing? Because I don't think people understand that. When people see people fighting this hard, they're like, there's got to be something in it, you know? People talk about me and Eric all the time. They're like, those guys are just making money on social media. And I'm like, what? I was like, we're making money on social media? Is that like, really? Is that what's going on? I didn't know. I wasn't kidding. I'm like, really? Could you tell everybody how much money you guys have made?
No, we haven't. There's no money to be made here. This is just, we want change. We're just doing this. The women, it's an honor to watch them. I'm going to just keep saying that. I'm so humbled by these women that just either their children have been affected by the shots or, you know, schools have thrown their kids out. I mean, if you like one day, man, when you guys are in town, I would love to introduce you to them and you'd understand where my passion, like they give me energy to do this every day. It's not even about me or my household, you know? And we do this for free. We do this to make change in New York. Everybody, and this is no shot to nobody that moved out the city, but rightfully so. It's tyrannical in New York, but if we give them ground, then they run New York. We need people to be here to fix this. We can't just run and give them ground. And they've had the ground for a long time. When I say they, guys, I mean this one party government that's been running our city. And it's like, if we don't stand up to this and we'll be willing to not make money, then we're not going to see change. We're just going to complain and complain and complain as they do congestion pricing or whatever else they put on us. Now the sanitation thing in the neighborhood is getting crazy. You know, it's like all these little things of tyranny all day long, you know, and we got to push back. We have to push back. And it's our responsibility to get educated and make change in our city. We can't give them any ground.
I think it's a great point, John. You're emphasizing, you know, are they making money off this? Because the bottom line is we're all cynical. People always feel like, okay, what's really behind this? You know, what benefit do they get? And you show that it's just about we the people getting together. Because you and I talk about it all the time. You know, I said, yeah, it's important to have a police force, but the bottom line is it's more important to have civilized communities. We need communities. Communities are what keeps things strong, right? It's more important that, you know, if I live in a neighborhood that I have a good relationship with my neighbors and we have a strong community, we say, you know what, we're not going to allow any riffraff here. It's the community that keeps things together. And I think that's what ultimately this is about. I think we the people is that. It's community. What do you get out of this? That's why I said, if you know, the people that are involved in this du jour movement are from all walks of life. You know, the commonality is that you just want to be we the people, and you don't want a dictatorship. And if you created something historic here that if we're getting to a point, honestly, in this country that it is becoming communism, a Marxist ideology, and we have to bring it back. And by you doing this and putting the work in, first of all, you educate yourself, you learn so much, and you really educated John and myself. I learned so much from you, honestly. You and I talk about it all the time. We talk on the phone like, wow, you know, you've seen our perspective in law enforcement. And then when we talk about we the people, and what I say I said a long time ago, we were law enforcement. I was also military, but we are the people also. You know, we're the people, we're part of the communities as well. So I appreciate it, brother. Impressive.
Yeah. So,
Thank you, brother.
I think like the big thing here, like the big story is this. It's the power of individuals. It's the power of getting involved. You know, I mean, even like I saw a big problem in the media. There wasn't an honest media. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to make my own media. Like, I'm just going to do my own thing. I'm going to go out on social media. I'm going to create a podcast. People like, who cares? Nobody's going to listen to you. Okay, nobody's going to listen, but I'm still going to do it, right? And so what happened here is you had a group of people that looked at what Eric Adams was doing, and they said, this is wrong. Something's not right here. This doesn't appear to be legal. So they went on their own. They researched the law. They spoke to some people, and they're like, this isn't legal. Oh, and by the way, there's a remedy for this in the law. So they found the remedy. They submitted it to the courts. Everyone's head spun because they're like, we don't even know what a summary inquiry is. They're subpoenaing the police commissioner who stepped down. They're subpoenaing the mayor. And these people are like, whoa, 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 whoa. We don't even know what this is, right? The courts are trying to run away from it. And prior to the courts getting in there, my attorney, Jim Wagner, sees them in the courts. And he's like listening to them. And then he researches it. And he's like, wait a minute. This summary inquiry thing's a real thing. So it's something that's just been lost in history. A bunch of patriots who knew that something was wrong wanted to write it. They bring it back. And now, because of this, Jimmy Wagner, representing some members of city council, are also doing a summary inquiry against Bill de Blasio and Jay Varmer about the actual merits of the mandate. Now they're attacking the merits of the mandate to force discovery that New York City isn't being forthcoming with. So this is a little snowball. It's starting off, and I'm not saying that your case, I don't know what's going to happen. Traditionally, I look at New York courts as completely corrupted. Until we get enough media attention and enough public attention to garner and get eyes on them, they're going to do a lot of nefarious things in the dark. So I don't have full faith in New York courts, not in my lawsuit, which I think is a ground ball. I think what you guys are saying is a ground ball. I think the merits of the summary inquiry against Varmer and de Blasio, they blatantly violated the law. It's not hard. It's not hard. It's not hard to see. I mean, anybody with common sense could be like, yeah, no, that's illegal. This is the law. This is what they did. Okay, that's illegal. And we're watching that. But I think ultimately what you guys did just shows the power of individual people. Instead of relying and waiting for Donald Trump's going to come and save you or somebody else is going to come and save you, nobody's coming to save you. You want to save you? Start researching, learn something, pick up a new skill, go out and do something. Put your balls on the table and do something. And that's what you guys did. And honestly, hats off to you. And honestly, to me, it's a huge victory. I don't even care what happens down the road. It's a victory, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's my point exactly, right? Fuzz, no matter what, you won. You won. Sometimes you can't judge an actual judge to make their decision. And I don't mean just a judge in the court, but a judge in life. I always talk about competing. I like to compete in some, jiu-jitsu or MMA. And there's a judge that makes a decision. And sometimes it's not necessarily who makes a decision whether win or lose, but it's the battle in yourself. In the challenge. And that's what the battle, when I say yourself, it's we the people that you got together and actually got to this point and pushed the envelope and actually your voices were heard. I think it's a win already. And you've already changed history. It's completely historic here. So I'm curious because you and I spoke about this quite often, right? And
yeah.
And you really made me think about it because you told John and myself when you became law enforcement officers, did you really understand when you swore and you took the oath, did you understand it? And you really made me think about it a lot. And I said, I do because I served in the military. But do you think that they really understand when they take an oath? Do they understand what that oath is and what it actually means?
That's my favorite. That's my favorite question, bro. So I think that we should know. We should all know. So let me just get it off law enforcement. There's an echo. You guys hear it?
Yeah.
There's some type of reverb. I think it's come from your mic.
My mic?
I'm not sure. John, you hear it?
I heard it on yours as well.
I don't hear it. Just keep going. I don't hear anything.
Okay. So I think it's broader than law enforcement. We have a sick society that don't know their God-given rights, and we have a law enforcement that knows the code, penal codes and stuff like that, but don't know the supreme law of the land. And how do we enforce law on the people if we don't know the law of the land. You got to really think about that. Like, we got to slow it down. How do we not know the Bill of Rights by heart, like the alphabet? All of us. Let's get off the cops. Like us, we should know it, because how are we going to hold our government accountable? How are we going to hold if we don't know our rights? It's a perfect game they're playing. They know that we are uneducated, that we need to be represented in court because we don't know our rights. And therefore they can run their bar, everything in the bar. They can run their game, and the people don't know, and hoping that the lawyers can get them out of their situation. The cops are not looking at it from a constitutional perspective, so they're not worried about it because they don't know it. They don't know the Constitution. This is really important, because it's like, this is what the true law of the land is. And I think this is why I always hone in on education and how important that is.
No, thanks. But there is a loud echo coming from your mic, bro. I don't know what it is. But
I apologize, guys.
Well,
No.
You did take a sabbatical, so.
But real quick, listen, we're gonna start to wrap this up anyway. So real quick before you run, could you let everybody know where to find you, where to find the Mighty Fuzz podcast and New York Dour?
Sure. Start with the New York Dour on Instagram at New York_Dour. Twitter the same at New York_Dour. And my handle is the Mighty Fuzz Podcast on IG and Mighty Fuzz Cast on X. I just want to thank you guys for shining a light on this. This has been in the dark for a very long time. Some people won't touch it, but you guys have always been supporting, and I appreciate you, man, very much.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Listen, I have to say, you educated me on a lot of stuff when it comes to the Constitution. It made me think different about it, right? Because I have to be honest. On the onset, when I first met you, I had reservations and thought, okay, maybe there's some type of sovereign citizens, right? Because I've experienced that a lot in policing. And John, we always talk about that. In any active retired, we've all encountered sovereign citizens. But this is not that. We talk about the Constitution, so I really appreciate it, man. Shout out to you, brother. It's impressive. Keep doing it, and you're making history. I just want to keep watching. Pay me for the ride, educate me. I really appreciate it. I don't know what this echo is and this reverb is. Driving me crazy.
I'm kicking you out, Fuzz. Yo, we'll be in contact. Thanks for coming on, brother. Appreciate you. Great job. Tell Andrea, great job. Very impressed, dude. Awesome. Thank you for joining us this morning. Everybody, go out to Mighty Fuzz Young Podcast on YouTube, on Rumble, and pick it up. So yeah. So sorry about the reverb. Apologies about the video didn't come up, but that was you didn't need the video because you heard it clear as day. You heard clear as day. You heard we the people holding elected officials and their appointed people accountable. And I think ultimately that's what matters. And I think the same's true when you look at this platform. We're giving you our honest perspective. Is it? And I always say, like, I believe what I'm saying is true. And that's the ultimate form of love that I could give to anybody. And Eric's doing the same thing. And that's what we're doing from this platform. If we get things wrong, which we will, we're human, we correct it. But what we're getting out of the media isn't an honest perspective. Oh, NYPD reverses course. NYPD chief of department reverses course. Nah, get it. That's not what happened here. What happened here is there's a glaring failure that's going to cost New York City taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars because of the same idiot that's changing the policy was the same one that implemented it for a negative effect on public safety. And that's what it is. You're not going to hear it anywhere else. And it just is what it is. That's why the Finest Unfiltered is a very vital platform. That's why what the New York Dour is doing is very vital. We need to actually hold our elected officials accountable and not be afraid to say what needs to be said.
I think the bottom line is people don't realize how impressive it is. And because to actually represent themselves pro se is super impressive. I mean, anybody who knows anything about a courtroom, to represent yourself pro se is really impressive. I mean, talk about not actually having a law background. You're going against a powerhouse. You're going up against people that have a law degree that already have a relationship with the judge. So I think it's really impressive. They made history here. There's no doubt about it. And like I said, I had my reservations when I first start to learn about the DuJour movement, figure that there's some type of sovereign citizens, but that's not the case here at all. Absolutely not. These are everyday people that have jobs, they're taxpaying people, they're good people. So someone just put KB, Eric is the mole, he's got the echo. I don't know, for some reason there was echo before. I don't know if we click something, some way we can reset this, refresh it, because somehow myself and Fuzz got some echo in the past 5 minutes. It's still going here.
I don't know. I don't hear any echo. It's coming. It's so Eric. If it, you know what I always like to say, then it's you. So, shocker.
I can't be a wild card here. Nothing has changed. I got the same laptop, same mic. My stalling's been going pretty well. Right, hold on. You press something. Now it's gone.
I didn't touch anything. I did.
Oh, I don't know. Now it's completely gone. So
yeah. He didn't touch nothing.
But honestly, don't you think? I think it's super impressive that they did go pro se. Honestly, to represent yourself in the courtroom is a scary thing. You're facing a powerhouse, and they have a relationship with the judge, and it really puts you in an intimidating position. And just for her to be so strong, I mean, they were drowning. All you heard is because they had no idea what was going on. Tom, shout out to you, $1.99 coffee and donuts. Finally, I missed bad Mike Eric. I don't know. I don't think it was me this time. Who knows?
It wasn't him, people. It was just the echo was coming from him, but it wasn't him. I must have pressed something. It wasn't him.
I'm not blaming you. But what do you think about that? Honestly, for them going pro se, don't you think that's super impressive?
I think. I think honestly, this is like it's a form that needs to go forward. Like people need to understand politics, and I think we need to understand the law with politics. And I think it's a lost art in society. When we look at the original politicians, they were unpaid. They were farmers. They were shoemakers. They were all of these people that didn't get paid. They went to these nightly town halls and they came up and they did things to benefit their own community and the future of this nation and where they lived. And they did it for free. They did it as a sign of respect and almost a public service, a required public service. So I think that I don't think it should be scary. I don't think it should be scary. And I think that's, someone said it here, Sherry or Yvette, they said fear controls us all, right? And that's what they want us to feel. Oh, you should be scared in the courtroom. Like, why should you be scared going in the courtroom? You were overseas in the desert in a foreign land where people were trying to murder you. You were out on the streets of New York chasing guys with guns. Why should I be scared of some little pencil neck dude that's going to try to talk around me? I'm like, all right, I'm sorry. Oh, I don't know the etiquette of the courtroom. I'll learn it. Just like I've learned everything else, and I think that's where we got to start from. Same thing with reaching out to your councilman, your assemblyman, your Congress. These are people. These are not anybody. I've went to school with Congress people that sat right next to me. I could honestly run circles around them in a debate on any topic. And I like, why should we be afraid as we the people? I think it was actually vital that they did that. I think it was so important. And the other thing we're seeing, especially in New York, is that there are attorneys that are tied to the system. Like, let's not get this twisted. They're not going to go after Eric Adams because it could affect their pocketbook. It could affect their wallets. And you see it over and over again. So it really relies on we the people to do that. I think it was very important that they did the pro se. I think that's the most important aspect of that case, is that it was brought by people who were not attorneys. I think that is ultimately the blueprint going forward. And honestly, I hope that they I said that, like, this was history in the making. This needs to be written down. There needs to be a book written about this specific case, and almost a manual for anyone to bring this type of case going forward. And going forward, by the way, there's more stuff in the law that's been lost in these hundreds of years of our republic that we need to awaken and bring back.
Yeah, I think this is a step in the right direction as far as creating history. And I think what we've done is we've disarmed the courtroom. I think that this We the People movement really did disarm the courtroom, because the courtroom is supposed to be open to public, right? It's supposed to be viewed by people, right? I always find it quite interesting, right? You know, you could just walk into any courtroom and you could even watch a homicide case, right? Because it's about the people. The courtroom is supposed to be open to the people, but it is an intimidating society created to put pressure to force people to have attorneys. It's part of this wheel, this business, right? The attorneys make money, the judges make money. I mean, even attorneys themselves, if they're in situations they have to go to court, they hire attorneys themselves, because to go pro se, you are treated differently in the courtroom. There's no doubt about it. So for them to stand up in the manner that they did is we the people and go pro se and push the envelope and not only did they actually express themselves and put up a case, to me, it was apparent that they showed that they belonged in that courtroom, and they made the other parties just look juvenile in comparison, because they show the passion. Clearly, you can see the work behind it, and that's why I'm so glad that you asked that question. How much money are they making? They're not making any money off this. They're doing this because they want to. They show the passion.
They're
they learn
spending money.
What's that?
They're spending money. That's
They're
what he didn't
spending
tell
money.
you.
That's a great
He
point.
didn't tell you how much money they're spending.
They're spending money. They're spending time. Yeah,
You know?
But I think that's what I got out of this whole thing. Like, just so amazing to me that they're there pro se. I am super impressed by that. I think because they could have went pro se and just got just completely annihilated, but they stood up and they fired back. I mean, Andrea was impressive. Obviously, she has the support of the people behind her and showed that they really are. They're a powerhouse, and the powerhouse is we the people. And it should always be that way. And that's why I say they set the tone for the entire country. Someone in another agency on the West Coast, I know Stephen S. is here with us on the West Coast. Someone on the West Coast could be saying right now, we need a du jour movement here and challenge our local officials as well. So this has definitely set the tone. Popeye, damn it, good friend to the podcast, brother. Good morning. Coffee and donuts, $20. Looks like he's not buying his coffee and donuts, his headphones, gentlemen. Listen, we've had headphones, not headphones. I've had things go wrong. The bottom line is it doesn't matter. We're definitely, listen, we don't put our emphasis on production. We put our emphasis on the content. So,
Tom, we need to file surety bond claims on the elected. I don't know about that. I don't really know what that is, dude. So I can't really comment. I know there's something with that they're bonded, but I don't know the inner workings of it to really speak about it. But yeah, man. So that's it. I think we went pretty long. I think we went a little bit longer than we thought we were going to go today. Tonight, join us up on X, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We're gonna hold a town hall. And honestly, anybody that wants to join up. Nobody's gonna see your face. It'll just be your X handle and your voice. Say what you want to say, man. We'll be there to answer questions. We'll be there to kind of moderate it a little bit. But we really want to hear from you guys, and what your thoughts are, and around New York City, around crime, around the state of politics in New York City, because I think ultimately it's everybody's voice that matters. It's not just mine or Eric's or Fuzz's or Sal. It's really all you guys. It's a true collective. This whole movement of citizens taking to the media, taking to politics, taking to the courts. It's a collective effort of people that are just fed up, and they're like, I'm not, you're not my boss. Matter of fact, let's reposition ourselves. You work for me. You work for me. Not the other way around. You're not going to talk down to me. You work for me. Oh, you're the mayor of New York City? Good. What have you done for me lately? What have you done for me lately? And that's ultimately what the movement is where we're going to revert this back to the generation of our parents and our grandparents, where you weren't afraid to speak your mind and let people know who they got to do. And we treated everybody, whether it's the janitor or the president of the United States, the same way. There's only one God. We don't idolize men. We don't idolize men on this earth, or positions or authority or women. No. You're just as important as everybody else.
Yeah, that's why I always talk about. I was a history major in college, and you look at history and you look how this country was founded, and how we actually got to the point of we are the people and got our own independence. It's so impressive because it was young men it was young men who were 19, 20, 21 years old. I think Benjamin Franklin, as I said earlier, I think he was the oldest. I think he was in his 40s at the time, which was considered old back then. But these were all young kids. It was basically kids that got together and decided we are the people, which is so impressive. And they were able to foresee of what a nation could become if it's not we the people, right? If it is a monarch. And that's why I think this movement is so cool, that they show that here we are, at a point that we could continue this ideology of we the people. And they didn't fight with weapons. They didn't get violent. They actually did it in the courtroom. And that's where the country was founded, right? That's why we have the Constitution, to make sure that your rights are protected, your rights are not violated, and that there's a courtroom where we could actually discuss these things. And that's why I think you're right, John, when you say we shouldn't be intimidated by the courtroom. We shouldn't be scared of the courtroom. It should be a place of freedom. It should be a place of expression. But the courtroom, unfortunately, is becoming a place of almost like tyranny, right? Where the judge has all the power and the attorneys are in bed with the judge. I mean, John, we've been in courtrooms, even as cops, and you feel like, wow, you almost feel like a peasant, right? Because of the way that they treat you, right? Because it's the judge and the attorneys that are in charge and have this kind of monarch mentality inside the courtroom. So to see this as a breath of fresh air, we are the people. Like, you know what? This courtroom belongs to the people. This doesn't belong to the judge. It doesn't belong to the attorney. You work here. You're a taxpayer. You work here so that we, the people, own this courtroom. So, you know what? I kind of feel like a moment like almost like I'm involved in this court case, which I haven't been, but because it's about we the people, just to feel that confidence in the courtroom, I think it's impressive. And it didn't come down to a degree. It didn't come down to prestige. It just came down to people of passion. So whether the judge decides with his gavel there's a win or a loss, if this is going to continue any further, it's a win. It's a win in society. So, I hope we see this around the country and definitely other parts of the country. Fuzz, awesome guy, great guy. Please, as we told our friends and listeners, check him out. Religious guy, really just a good family man, super cool. So, hopefully we get together in the future, actually in person. But speaking of tonight with the X Space, I was never a big social media guy, but I can tell you what, the power of social media is huge, it's vast, and it's how you utilize it. So this opportunity of having a virtual town hall brings us together, not only on a local level where we could come together nationwide and start to express our opinions and talk about what's going on, just not in New York City, but what's going on in the country, what we want better, what we want to see, what we do like, collective minds. It's opposition meets opportunity, minds alike, where we can all have a pathway and an opportunity to speak our minds freely. And listen, the bottom line is social media is bringing the First Amendment back. We have an opportunity to actually speak our minds and actually speak what we feel. And you know what? We may face some opposition for us, but it just makes us stronger and it brings us together.
Yeah, absolutely. We had Fuzz on the podcast a while back. I would check that out. Stephen S. says, rights, if not exercised, and laws, if not enforced, are just words on a piece of paper. So, Fuzz said something when he was on the podcast with us. And I never heard it put that way, and it still sits with me today. And he said freedom is a muscle, and that muscle needs to be exercised to grow. And if that muscle's not exercised, it grows atrophy. So like your muscles, when you lift weights, they get bigger, they get swollen, they become, they grow, they flourish. But if you just sit around in your chair, you get atrophy and your muscle shrinks. And that's basically freedom as a whole. So what we've been doing on this platform is exercising our freedom of speech. And that's why we're growing. And that's why we're flourishing. If we were to sit there and say, I can't say that, I'm retired, I have a pension, oh, they're not going to invite me to the retirement ceremonies, which they haven't. Oh, my unions aren't going to love me, which they haven't. Oh, they're not going to honor my sacrifice, which they haven't. They're not going to stand up for me, which they haven't. Guess what? You slowly erode that freedom that you have, slowly erodes, and it goes away. So it was such a great, and by the way, I'm talking the whole spectrum. I'm not just talking freedom of speech here. Freedom is a muscle. It needs to be utilized to grow. It needs to be exercised to grow. That's what we're doing here. We're exercising our freedom of speech freedom of the media, freedom of the press, freedom of religious rights. This is what this is about. So I appreciate all of you guys for joining. We had about 800 people with us the whole time. We'll be back live 8:05 tomorrow. I think we're going to have a little bit more news tomorrow morning. But yeah, check us out at the town hall tonight. I think we'll have a little fun. We'll kick it around. Maybe it'll be casual. Might have a lot of people, might have a little people. Doesn't matter. We'll go on for a few hours. We'll discuss everything. And I think it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
I usually don't like to entertain the trolls, but I just want to read this out because clearly this person speaks of just complete slander and has no idea what they're talking about. Let me read this here. Robert Heimelstein. It is incredible to me how you guys were cops for 20 years abusing rights, and now you see the light because you never knew and are just learning now. Wow. That's clearly not what we're saying. So you haven't been taking the ride from us. I don't know if this is your first appearance on the podcast, but if you go back and you watch, John and I have about 306, maybe 310 episodes already. So clearly you would say that's not who we are. That's not who our active retired members are. So to have that blanket statement about cops is clearly coming from a place of just bias and disdain. That's not the case at all. Are there some bad apples out there? Absolutely. But the overwhelming majority of cops want to do their jobs properly. They want to make sure that they work under the U.S. Constitution, especially John and I. We took pride in Supreme Court cases, which are cases are presided by a judge under the U.S. Constitution to make sure that we're actually doing our job, protecting the public, but also at the same time protecting the rights of the people. John and I talk about it all the time. I think you would see that, our careers as cops and actually now retirement, we're probably the biggest advocates for the U.S. Constitution as law enforcement officers. We talk about all the time how important it is to have your First Amendment. We talk about all the time search and seizure, right? We are the same. And obviously, Robert Heibelston, maybe you need to go back. I think our episode on Miranda and these warrantless searches going around the city, I think it was 2 days ago where we spoke how they're completely violating the Constitution, and then you actually need a warrant from the judge before you go through someone's place, and we don't want this communist type of environment. So I usually don't address the trolls, but hey, listen, if you're new to this podcast, I appreciate you having you here, and that's why I say opposition meets opportunity, and we can talk about these things. So I hope to see you for further episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, screw him anyway. The guy people don't know. I had someone attack me online. Where the hell were you during the mandate? I was like, I want if I could jump through Twitter and just choke somebody, I would be like, who the hell are you talking to? And so like violate rights. Actually, when de Blasio was saying that we were going to enforce masks and social distancing, I was like, yeah, I'm absolutely not doing that. My guys are absolutely not doing that. And blatant just like that. Absolutely not our job. Not constitutional. Not doing it. So I don't know what you're talking about violating rights if you don't know us as individuals. And that's the thing. Robert's probably, he's probably an anti-racist. And I love the anti-racists. You know why? Because they're anti-racist. They'll never judge anybody by based upon the color of their skins, but they'll judge everybody based upon a profession. So if you're a cop, you abuse people, you violated rights. If you're a firefighter, you cheat on your wife, and you do, like all these stupid things. Like, it's like, dude, you don't see, like, when you group identify people, regardless if it's because of their profession, regardless if it's because their ethnicity, their race, their creed, when you group identify people, it's because ultimately it's not because you're a racist. It's not because you hate people. It's because you're ignorant. It's because you're dumb. That's what it is. Robert, so that was a dumb statement. Hope you join us for further discussions. Appreciate you for being on here today. And shout out to Amazing Ant. This podcast is protecting the United States Constitution, cops, and community together. That's it, baby. We're going to rock it out together. We're creating a real town hall. You're not just allowed to ask one question like an Eric Adams town hall. You don't have to, hi, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for wearing your suit and everything you do in Kaz Daughtry. I'm going to ask the one question for table 13 because all of the other questions aren't allowed. No, all the questions are allowed, Robert. Join us up on X. Let's talk about violating rights. Let's talk about all of it.
Yeah, I that's exactly right. And that's what it's about on the X space, the town hall with the Finest Unfiltered, is that we're not trying to control the narrative. We'll monitor it, but we're not controlling the narrative. So if you bring up a conversation, something that's important to you, it should be addressed. You know what? We'll have a meaningful conversation. So Comment of the day, absolutely, to you, amazing Ant. Of course, coffee and donuts with it. So we'll end right there. I think that was a comment of the day, that this is about protect the U.S. Constitution for cops and community, because cops are community. So we'll bring this all together. With that being said, we'll see you, of course, tomorrow. We'll be back live, 8:05 live Eastern Time, bright and early, 5:05 with me, Pacific Coast. So I'm sure Stephen S., I understand you're on the West Coast also. Maybe we can meet up someday. And with that being said, you're getting up bright and early with me. Thank you. I appreciate it. And so Robert Heimelston says he will be watching. And I know how many cops, and I talk in general, but other cops say nothing but you are. But hey, listen, we'll see you on further episodes. Outstanding. Take care.
Be back at you.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888-901-BLUE. That's 888-901-BLUE.